The first figure represents Fish 1's percentage of independence in trials per session for each task. The baseline data were steady with no trend in 0% independence. After the third intervention session of 100% independence in all trials, or the fourth session of the intervention phase, the skill was considered mastered. The second task was going through the tunnel. The intervention for the second task began in session 11. The data had a lot of variability throughout the intervention after session 16 and did not achieve mastery until session 39. The third task of putting a basketball in a hoop did not have a lot of intervention time due to the longer time spent on task 2, and it only had 1 day of intervention with 0% independence. There are not enough data points to address trend or variability. The second figure shows Fish 2's data for all 3 tasks. It represents the percentage of independence for all sessions for each task. The first task of going through the hoop had a baseline of 6 sessions, and the intervention began in the 7th session. The baseline data were steady at 0% and had no trend in the baseline. However, the intervention phase had a sharp increasing trend with little variability from session 7 to 12. After session 12, the data are steady at 100% and have no trend or variability. The first task met mastery criterion in session 14. The second task of going through a hoop had 14 baseline sessions. This task took a little longer to master and was mastered in the 34th session. The third and final task of putting a basketball in a hoop had a baseline of 34 sessions, and the intervention began in the 35th session. The baseline and intervention phase were both steady at 0% independence, and there was no trend or variability in either phase. The third figure represents Fish 3's percentage of independence in the 3 tasks. For Fish 3, there were 6 days for baseline for the first task, and the intervention phase began during session 7. The baseline data were steady at 0% independence with no trend or variability. Between sessions 12 and 20, there's a lot of variability in the data with an increasing trend. Fish 3 was able to master the first task in session 22, and all sessions after session 22 remained steady at 0% independence. The second task, going through a tunnel, was initiated after the 22nd session. Baseline data were taken from sessions 1 to 22 and remained steady at 0% independence. There is no trend or variability in the baseline data. The intervention data are highly variable with no identifiable trend. The intervention phase of task 2 peaks at 80% independence but never achieves the mastery criterion of 100% independence across 3 sessions. And the percentage of independence decreases sharply after session 37. Since Task 2 did not reach mastery criteria, Task 3 was unable to be initiated and remained in baseline for the entirety of the study. Task 3 baseline data were steady at 0% independence with no trend or variability. These figures show that 2 out of 3 fish were able to successfully chain 2 tasks together and attempt a third task, whereas before they were unable to complete any tasks. And the third fish was unable to chain any tasks, but was able to acquire a new skill during the study.